I'm going to introduce now Mr. Clarence Slocklee. He's from Australia, from the Minjingbal clan of the Bundjalung people on the far north coast of New South Wales. He grew up with a long family on a farm with a long family history of bushmen, farmers, fishermen. He combined his love of teaching and culture with his current role as the Aboriginal Education Officer in Royal Botanic Gardens in Sydney. But he's fortunate in having travelled to many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities across Australia, and so he's benefited from a broad range of cultural practices in Australia. He's now combining several years of performance and workshop facilitation with a lifelong love of plants in the bush, and he's now promoting environmental education, Aboriginal culture and heritage as an educator with the Royal Botanic Gardens and Domain Trust in Sydney. So welcome, Clarence. Thank you.
Oh, Jingwa, Walla Bayan. It's always intimidating when you're in a room full of scientists. Not all of you are scientists, but you know, it's almost like a sea of scientists, scientific discovery. I'd like to reiterate what Chipper and Marion have already said. I probably should have spoke to Marion beforehand because I could have had a comparative slideshow. Where I'm from, Bundjalung, which is my clan is Minjingbal, and I'll go on in a slide shortly to tell you about it. But my talk is about cultural knowledge in nature conservation, but much more broadly conserving culture and revitalising culture. The history of Australia is such that 1770, some good things happened. Young Joseph Banks came along and saw all these wonderful new plants that he'd never seen before. But 1788, then things changed irrevocably. For Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So we have two First Nations people. There are a lot of Aboriginal people who don't like the word Indigenous. My uncle is one of them. But revitalising culture and keeping culture strong is what I fully believe in. As an Aboriginal man living in the largest city in Australia, we are fortunate to be surrounded by bush, and I'll touch on what's happening back home shortly as well. But in my language, just to say hello, we would say Jingawa Walla Walla Bayan. And I was talking to Huata, who I believe is teaching mathematics today at the university, so I don't think he's with us this morning, but I did ask him, because we like to share in culture and acknowledge the ancestors of the places we visit. So I'll also ask that you forgive me, because I haven't sung this song for a long, long time, but it was a sharing between Maori and Aboriginal people quite a while ago. So to my Maori brothers and sisters, if I do get this wrong, it's going to be very embarrassing. But pardon me, it is a nice Maori song. We have over 250 Aboriginal languages, so it's quite difficult to do plant names and place names because they vary quite differently. So I'll be very quick. Maori, Aboriginal.
Haere mai te manuhiri, haere mai, haere mai. Haere mai te manuhiri, haere mai, haere mai. Lo runga te manuhiri, lo raru te manuhiri, lo te ti, lo te ta, ha, he ha. And in my language, Jinga.
Having gotten that out of the way, Sharing in culture is what I love. Teaching about culture and educating people about plants, something I also love doing, and I'm sure all of you love doing. And it was great to listen yesterday about BGCI, getting the education, getting the message out there. So my message, this is a beautiful place I was fortunate enough to visit earlier this year. It's a place called Nitmaluk in the local Jarwan language, and I was talking to Uata's lovely wife last night. She's visited this place teaching to some of the preschools up there. Beautiful rock hole. They call this one the Southern Rock Hole. It has an Aboriginal name. They call this end of the gorge, they call Manyalaluk, which is frog dreaming. So we have lots of dreaming stories. Again, as I said, we have lots of Aboriginal languages, tribal groups, and we have the Torres Strait Islander people as well. This is just a really quick summation of New South Wales, which I'll talk primarily about because that's where I'm from. Similar to the Australia-New Zealand rugby competition, we have Queensland and New South Wales in the rugby league. I was born on the New South Wales side of the border, even though Bundjalung does extend up to the Gold Coast. So we're talking about plant and animal extinction, lots of threatened species, and some of my colleagues are here and they will be speaking about threatened species, I do believe. We have lots of impacts, obviously. Feral animals are a big issue, particularly in Western New South Wales, not only with threatened species, but also with a lot of our culturally significant sites. We have rock art dating back 10, 15, 20,000 years. We have feral pigs and goats in particular who are in there rubbing themselves on the beautiful artwork and rubbing it off the face of some of our rock shelters. So they're now protected to stop those feral animals getting in. Big issues obviously with invasive species. We have a terrible invasive species around Sydney called asparagus fern, which just seems to be everywhere at the moment. I tried to fit Australia into one slide, but it just was too big. So forgive me for this image because it is a little blurry, but this just gives you a rough idea. I've even got the pointer. This is Bundjalung here, and if we go back again. If we go up to the Torres Strait Islands, as I said, 2 distinct First Nations people, over 250 language groups. We do have Aboriginal people in Tasmania, contrary to popular belief. Historically, though, we have been marginalised, and we are slowly bringing things around for Aboriginal people. 1967 referendum gave us the right to vote as an Aboriginal people. Prior to 67, we came under a range of legislation, particularly the Flora and Fauna Act and the Aboriginal Protection Act, which led to the Stolen Generations, if I'm sure some of you are familiar with. This gives you an idea of the scope or the difference between Aboriginal culture. So there's not just one Aboriginal culture. If you look at Australia, you're looking at a whole range of geographic locations. And the East Coast, where I'm from, we do have rainforest country. My dreaming is Wollumben, which is a huge extinct volcano. We have lots of rainforest area. Sadly though, I still like to consider myself young. Back home, a form of respect for our elders is to call them uncle. So now when I've got younger blokes and their 20s calling me uncle, I sort of, you just call me Clarence. I know that I know they're giving me respect, but it's they're reinforcing that I'm getting older. But the Central Desert mobs, obviously, they have to work a lot harder, and they do retain their culture. Language is a big issue worldwide, and there is a poster next door that I was reading, which we lose Indigenous languages at a very fast rate, which is very, very sad. I don't speak my language fluently. We do thankfully have Bundjalung language programs in place in the schools to revitalise language, and it's really hard to keep the language strong when you don't have anyone to talk to. But we are getting there. There are a lot of programs. New South Wales, this gives you an idea of just about scope or scale. So 800,000 square kilometres. Is it 2.2 chipper for the mile? Yeah. So you can do your own conversions into miles if you like. So you know, if we're and strangely enough, we're the 5th largest state in Australia. So we're not the biggest by any means. We're still pretty big, but not that big. So the UK would fit into New South Wales about 3.25 times, and California and New Mexico. Don't want to diss California or anything like that. It's just, again, comparative. But most of you have been probably keeping up. It's up to about 40,000 hectares at the moment that's been burnt, and the fires are still burning. There's 60 fires, about a 300-kilometre fire front, and they're a little bit scared. When we were back home last Thursday, it was about 38 degrees and we had 50 to 90k winds. That was the big problem. And I'll touch on that because traditionally for Aboriginal people, fire was a management tool. And our good mate Captain Cook, Chipper, yes, Captain Cook, he did mention, he made mention of the fires that were burning as he travelled the east coast of Australia. And those fires were burning, you know, Aboriginal people were using them for as I said, for fire management. And it is still used, but it's taken a long time for the scientific community. And you know, I guess like all of us in this room, I do have to be careful what I say because I am employed by a government agency. And I guess that is the difficulty for a lot of scientific research and evaluation. Back home, climate change doesn't exist in the eyes of policy makers and decision makers. So you know, I'm not quite sure whether I should have said that, but yeah, you just have to walk outside. It is getting hotter, and for Aboriginal people, you would never burn the bush when it's 38 degrees. It burns too hot and it just burns too hard. And you have those problems of ecosystems and you know just how hot it goes. When you do the cool burns, things start to come back, and you know you've got the new growth happening, and it's then it starts to get hotter, and you don't have the fuel on the ground, and things aren't going to get out of control like we see these days. And I'm not about to go into the policies and the pros and cons of whether we backburn or whether we don't backburn, because I'm not in that position to make those decisions. What I will say though is that we are looking, well, not me personally obviously, but they are looking at Aboriginal fire management processes. And a young cousin of mine, strangely enough, has been seconded to a unit that are specifically looking at Aboriginal fire management tools. And the Tiwi Islands, which is, I'll have to backtrack on this one. The Tiwi Islands, which is situated just here, just off Darwin. An amazing place if you ever get to visit up there. And one of my botanical heroes, affectionately known as the barefoot botanist, Glenn Whiteman, has done an amazing amount of work with local peoples right across the top end, and writing books that belong to the communities. They don't belong to well, they belong to everyone, I guess, but that Indigenous cultural knowledge remains with the communities. And that's always been an issue for Aboriginal people, as I'm sure Indigenous peoples the world over, is we're all very sharing people, we're very, open, and we like to, impart our knowledge. Well, particularly our elders, they like to impart their knowledge to people, but sometimes that knowledge gets misrepresented or it is misused. So, and particularly in this day and age when copyright and intellectual property copyright and so on and so forth, it does become a problem for Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people and Indigenous people, I'm sure, the world over. So giving up that knowledge is we do need to look at how we use that information and to, I guess, encourage the elders and the old people to impart their wisdom, because my big brother told me a long time ago that and particularly in Aboriginal culture, because of that oral tradition, when an elder dies, a library burns down. And it's really sad, we have lost a lot of Aboriginal cultural knowledge. And it's, it is a beautiful thing to see it revitalised and to see people out there in community working with the elders and giving them that respect, because a lot of elders too, they have that knowledge, but they don't have the title of doctor or evolutionary ecologist or phytochemist, but they have an incredible wealth of knowledge that they hold, and it is unbelievably magic. I've been to a lot of communities and I've been really lucky. So I don't want to go too much comparing with Marion, but we do have Tetragonia tetragonoides, one of my favourite botanic words to impart. But in Sydney they call it warrigal greens, and the warrigal is a Tharawal language word for dingo. So the dingoes would get in and roll around and scratch themselves, and Chipper might be, you and I are probably around the same musical taste, I'm just guessing, but Frank Zappa had a song about the yellow snow, so don't eat the yellow tetragonoides either. But I was trying to work out the opposite of projection. It can't be rejection, I'm sure, but this is a rear projection of New South Wales back in 1788. It was put together by a friend of mine who works for our department, and our department no longer has the word environment. Well, it does have environment, but it no longer has the word conservation, which is quite, I see us as really the only agency in New South Wales who can make a difference, and particularly with scientific research and things like that. But this is a bit of an idea of what we think with a lot of the veg mapping that's done by scientists at the Botanic Gardens Trust. And this is just a rough idea of what we're looking at today. So the shading just shows how much vegetation has been lost, and some of the issues, I guess, in particularly in those ecosystems, is that you lose the little plants, and people always they like the cuddly animals. So when I don't want to again form any sort of competition about flora and fauna, but the flora is threatened, the flora becomes extinct, and people just sort of don't know about it. They don't. I'm sure they care about it, but they just don't see it as much as the koalas in particular. So koalas, I guess, are an interesting one, because they are cute, they are cuddly. If you go to the zoo and you're out in the wild, they're cranky little things. They scratch you, and they're not that cuddly, believe me. This is just the gratuitous shot of me in my younger days, but it's really just to show that this is a ceremony that we held in Sydney. We do, as I said, this one is my totem. So this is more about telling you some of the systems used by Aboriginal people, in ceremony and from birth, or as you grow older, you're given a totem, and you can't eat your totem. That's number one. Because it's our ancestors, it's our connection to the natural world, and my totem, my totem has given me lots of messages through my life. My dreaming animal is, well, it's actually a bird, but my dreaming is the kookaburra, and I didn't bring a photo of a kookaburra, and again, for the benefit of my colleagues and for those of you who may not have been fortunate to visit Australia. If you've ever watched reruns of Tarzan, you've probably heard it before, which always used to amaze me as a kid. But he makes this sound. Something like that. So this, I have to know about this fella and how he interacts in nature, and this is right across Australia. Everyone has a totem. Today, again, those cultural practices, due to our history, and Aboriginal people being moved onto missions, and the rations of flour, sugar and tea has a big impact on Aboriginal people. And I was really pleased to hear about Chipper's stories about the breadfruit. And again, I should have, if I had known, I would have shown you a picture of a breadfruit in Darwin. It was massive. Huge. But some of the traditional food uses, Aboriginal people, very, very healthy, lean. We have a really good proportion of Aboriginal sportsmen in professional sports in Australia, and they're the ones that are fortunate enough not to eat the really bad food. But it has had an impact, and we have diabetes, and we have obesity. We have sadly in some of our remote communities we have malnutrition. And we pride ourselves as being the lucky country. So for my life expectancy as an Aboriginal male is 57. For Aboriginal women, it's 63. So these are some of the issues that we have as Aboriginal people because of that disconnect through cultural knowledge, and we are revising it, we are bringing it back, and we're trying to get our young people engaged. And this is a problem that I see, not just with Aboriginal people, but with the broader population. The kids that come into the Royal Botanic Gardens, and Botanic Gardens everywhere, with those, as Chipper said again, the ex situ collections, people can connect with nature, but they can do it in a safe environment. It's amazing how many people, and particularly people from who have made Australia home, they weren't born in Australia. They're terrified of the bush. It's yeah, sure, we've got a lot of poisonous snakes and spiders and things, but you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But there's a big disconnect with the natural world. So Botanic Gardens have the ability to be able to let children interact, and let adults interact for that matter, with the natural world in a controlled environment, and they can see how plants work. They can see those processes. Where I work, we're fortunate. We grow a lot of the plants that are used as bush foods, and we do have superfruits as well, and superfoods that have really, really high levels of vitamins and antioxidants and all sorts of things that are good for you. But we're not taking advantage of those foods. We're growing the staples, and we're having a big impact on soil and on resources because of the way that we grow the foods that people use every day. So I'm very enthusiastic, as are some of my other friends and colleagues who look at bush foods. We have a lot of Aboriginal chefs who are going back to a lot of our native fruits and a lot of our native foods. Kangaroo, it's very good for you. Wallaby's even better. It's really, really nice. High in protein, low in fat, and they don't fart as much as cows, so you don't have to worry about the methane gas and all those emissions, so it's all good. All right. And just again, another gratuitous shot of arguably the best harbour in the world, and certainly a location for a botanic garden right next to the CBD. It's smack bang in the middle of the largest city in Australia. Again, we have an issue with Melbourne. They think they're better than we are. Sydney's pretty good, but we're right on the coast. We have this amazing harbour. We have 3 garden estates. The Blue Mountains Botanic Garden at Mount Tomah has been used as an evacuation site during the bushfires. So we provide an amazing place of scientific discovery. We hold collections that date back to the 1770 voyage and through to present day. So it's this resource that is underutilised by the majority of people in Australia, and for that matter, Aboriginal people. But fortunately, the organisation that I work for, and by extension the department that I work for, do take Aboriginal people and Aboriginal cultural knowledge seriously, and it's a great forum for learning some of the old ways and then marrying it with a lot of the new ways, and particularly the scientific data and a lot of the research that goes on in relation to those foods that have been eaten for thousands and thousands of years by Aboriginal people. All right, let me just check my timer because I know I'm going pretty long. I'm not far off. So I'll pretty much just leave it like that because I know we're going long. It was a very short and sharp presentation. I could have had thousands of plant pictures up there, but you guys, you've seen a lot of plants in your lifetime, I'm sure. So some of them, I've actually got a few gifts for Alan for allowing me to be here today, and it is an honour to be in a room, as I said, of such distinction. And they are bush foods from Australia. So if you want to come and check out some of the stuff that we grow and are now producing, check it out. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Clarence, and thanks, Chipper, and thanks, Marion. That was a fantastic session from my perspective in terms of the talking points, particularly of the Congress, really about how we can marry the old ways and the new ways, and really that we need to do that because it's necessary for the survival of ourselves and the planet. And the Botanic Gardens have a fantastic opportunity to look for partnerships, to take that knowledge, to build on knowledge. There's so much opportunity there in a positive way, and we've really heard about a lot of that this morning, and I really want to thank our three presenters a lot for that. Thank you. So we're running a bit behind time now, but I really encourage you to think about those talking points in terms of this heritage issue, cultural. I'm confused now because I don't know whether to say Indigenous or Aboriginal. But the relationship of cultural diversity and biodiversity and how they are interrelated is something that, as gardens, we really need to consider seriously. So thank you very much for your attention.